This is Thursday of week 7. On Tuesday, we did all sorts of things. Markup and margin, pricing, kind of a whole bunch of subtopics. We did not get to discount. We stopped at the entree pricing. But we're going to start with lots of problems because we went so fast last time with all the new vocabulary. So the random problems for margin and markup are here. And let's start with the first one. So just like last class, I sort of like drawing a diagram to help that the wholesale cost is down below, the selling price is up above. What's the difference between them?
$52.
Yeah. So this problem says, what's the margin amount and what's the markup amount? It wants to make sure you're understanding the vocabulary. And who remembers what the answer would be?
I wanted to say 52.
Actually, they're both 52. The difference is that if I am thinking about it as going down, well, let me make the highlight, from the selling price to the wholesale cost, then that would be the margin amount. Whereas if I think of it as going up, from the wholesale cost to the selling price, then that's the markup. So margin, we're thinking down. Markup, we're thinking up, but it's the same 52.
David, is that wording just different because of, you could solve that problem 2 different ways?
It's partly an accident of history, just different businesses using their own words for things. And when we get to the rate very soon, then when you do that, a percent change is change divided by original, whether you think that this is original or whether you think that this is original matters a lot. But it is kind of annoying that there's 2 words for the same thing. We also talked last class that neither of these is profit. In sort of normal sloppy English, we would say, oh, the store bought something for 115 and they sold it for 167. They made a profit of 52. And it is true that if their only expense was the wholesale cost, then they did gain $52. But in real life, there's always other expenses of rent and payroll and utilities and everything. So their profit is less than that. So to make it worse, not only are there 2 words for the same thing, but people pretend that profit means this also when it doesn't. Okay, now we actually get a little more interesting. We have rates, not just amounts. So we're going to think about that percent change is change divided by original. Because the rates always involve the percent change. So we know an item can sell if it's priced at 869. And we want to know what the wholesale cost is. We are thinking about going down, so this isn't margin amount. So I want to find 15% of the 869. I'm saying that my percent change, the 0.15,
$130.35.
yeah, is going to be something divided by the 869. Move that kind of out of the way. You can think about the percent change formula, or you could just think about how of means multiply. You might well think I am writing too much here. Okay, and what was the answer?
$130.35.
Okay,
I did that correctly.
looks good to me.
I
10% would be about 87, and then half of that again.
yeah,
So that's how much goes down, right? We're going down the 130. That wasn't what it asked for. If this is the 130.35, I don't think I need to actually write that part then. So what's my last step?
Riplop.
No, we did the riplop up here. I want to find what wholesale price they can afford to pay for this.
$730.65.
Yeah. I have to subtract $730.35.
$733.
733.
Yeah, $733.65.
65. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. And we have the answer we want. I'm not quite happy with how I wrote this because I think I made it bigger than it could be. So we could do that, or we could just do 0.15. So either way, Some people will like the top, some people will like there. So that was a margin amount. We're thinking down. The original number was what we're selling it to the customer. The next problem is kind of the opposite. This is a markup rate. So let me grab that one. Oh, I don't want to draw a picture.
I'll be right back. My son needs Cheerios.
Okay. Not sure why that's taking a long time to load. Okay. So this time we're going to buy something for 80. It's going to go up, and we're not sure what price is going to go there. Okay, so I was kind of quiet, but I did the same thing. You can either think, what is 22% of the 80? Or you could think the percent change is change divided by original. Both ways of thinking will get you 0.22 times 80, which is $17.60 of change. That's not what they asked for, so we have to put it back on top of the 80 and get the answer. So a last comment, these problems were all very polite, that they went in the right direction. The problem that was trying to go up from the wholesale cost gave you a markup rate, which is a percentage of that wholesale cost. If instead it had given you 22% of them as a markup rate, and let's pretend it's a different item. We're selling a TV for 1,200. Now I'm stuck because I need to multiply this 0.22 by something over here that I don't have. That's a little bit trickier because the markup rate needs the bottom number, the wholesale cost. Similarly, if they gave us not a markup rate, but a margin rate, the margin rate wants to multiply by the selling price. So if the problem didn't give us that, instead it said, what is that? We bought something wholesale for 1,200. How much should we sell it for? Then that's harder because we're going to want to multiply something we don't know by 22%. So don't think too much about that. I don't want you to get confused, but just realize that these problems could be very tricky if people were rude and didn't give you the appropriate things, but they did. When we were using a margin rate, they gave us the top number. When they're using a markup rate, they gave you the bottom number. So everything went smoothly.
What if we did get, or they did present the problem backwards?
Okay, let's do that. Let's do whichever of these seems most natural to you. Do you like thinking about margin rates going down more or markup rates going up more?
Let's do the margin.
Margin, okay. So we'll take something like this and change it. So instead of what it's priced at, we'll say if it has a wholesale cost and I'm just going to say 100 to make it really easy. And then what so at what selling price will they want to stock the item? Okay, so we've changed the problems to make it backwards like we want. So the wholesale cost is 100. The selling price we don't know. We want to write something in the box, but we're going to use the margin amount even though it's, oops, the wrong tool. So this is a 22% margin rate. It's going down. Okay, everyone okay with my setup?
Yep.
So now I'm going to ask, for now I'll put the word what in there. 22% of what is $100? I'm sorry, wrong question. If this is 22% going down, then this one is 122% with the 1 plus trick. So what is 122% of 100? Everyone see why 122 is the right thing to do?
Uh-huh.
But I think I am tricking myself. No, I'm still not right, because that would be, that's still basing it on the 100. No, I'm asking the wrong question. This is why these are tricky. I want, because you believe me when I say the wrong thing.
Wouldn't it be 100 is 22% of what?
No, that's not right either. I think what we want is that if we go down 22% and we get to 100, then what's left is,
Wow, this is
Do we
confusing.
this
divide?
is confusing. I haven't done one of these in a while. Let me try drawing a circle. Sometimes that helps me. So the 100, no, that's not going to help me either. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to do this like a Math 60 way. Trying to make it only use Math 22 vocabulary isn't working. So what I'm going to tell myself is I take this letter Y and I'm going to multiply it by 0.22, right? All of that I'm taking away from Y. And once I do that, then I get to 100. Does my longer equation with 2 Y's make sense?
So, are you going to divide 100 by 0.22?
Yeah, I'm going to say Y minus, so it was the 88. I was right before. I just couldn't convince myself of it. So if I have a whole Y and I take away 0.22 of a Y, then I'm at 0.78 of a Y. So I need to divide both sides by 0.78 to get Y by itself.
Okay, so you subtracted 22 from 100 to get to 78.
Right.
Huh.
There we go.
Well, I'll be damned.
So this is why you take Math 60, by the way, because when you're able to write it out with all the steps you need, the whole amount minus 22% of that amount is where I want to go, then it's nice and straightforward. But trying to do it all in your head of where's the 22 go and how does it fit with this and so on
Right.
is what messes us up. And I was thinking several options, one of which was this one. I just couldn't convince myself it was the right one unless I actually wrote it out in Math 60.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So there we go. If you're required to take Math 60, now you know why.
Which
But
I am.
the general thing is let's be polite. And if we're using markup, we start from the bottom.
Right.
Using margin, we start from the top. And then we're just multiplying by the ripple up percent. And it all works out nice. Okay, let's do another one the quick way.
That's definitely a good way to strain your brain.
Yeah. That looks like the same problems. There we go. Those are different. I don't like how I used the percent change formula. I think that makes it too complicated. So let's fit both on the page. Just using percent now that we're appreciative of doing things right. So for number 2, then we have 727. It's going down, we don't know what. And this is 18% margin rate. Is the question mark better or the empty box better? I kind of like the empty box better.
I think I kind of like the empty box.
Me too.
So that's number 2. Number 3, we're starting at 23. We're going up and we don't know what it is too. And it's a 21% markup rate. Everyone okay with my 2 pictures?
Mm-hmm.
And they're polite. The one that's going down is a margin rate. The one going up is a markup rate. So we're good to go. So we're just needing to find what is 18% of 727.
130.86.
138.
130.86.
130.86. Okay. And then at the end,
596.14.
so these problems should be nice and easy and straightforward. If I made them too hard earlier, then this is all there is to it. Okay, so 21%,
483.
483. Okay. So ta-da, easy to fit 2 on one page because they're not that bad unless I'm making them harder than they should be. So that was margin rate and markup rate. Then we also had problems about pricing. Anyone need this slide more before I go on? Okay, holler if you do. So don't make these harder than they are. Not sure I want to try and fit 2 on one slide though, so I think I will move to the next slide. Okay, a store attracts customers with a loss leader that sells for $2. This was like the chickens at Costco last class. Each sale costs the store 30 cents. And each month, the store sells 727 of that item. How much does the loss leader cost the store? So tell me what to rate.
727 times 0.30.
So 281.10 or 218. So this here was a red herring, right? You don't need that one.
I know, I love it when math problems do that. They toss all these other things in there and you don't really need them.
So good job not being tricked. The new phone has a skim price. So remember how skim price worked. You had the price of something went down when it was new and popular. It was at $796. But later on, after everyone has one, then it's only $334. Remember that graph from last time? Okay. So how much money were they making? What was their either margin or markup amount, whatever you wanted to call it, at the beginning? So initially, every time they sold one of these things, they would make $606. So
144.
would get me to 200, so 144. Then as our last step, it says divide the larger by the smaller. So 606 divided by 144. So it's about 4.2. So 420% more.
Wow.
So their profit was a little more than 4 times as big.
That's crazy.
It depends on your business. There are a lot of tech companies where this is how they stay in business. The established price is barely profitable. They keep selling those things because Otherwise, people will complain that you're only selling the new expensive things. But it's the new releases that keep the company afloat. What was that company?
The phone company.
There was a brand of computers that was at Costco in the 90s. It wasn't Acer, it wasn't Compaq, I can't remember. Anyway, you'd go into Costco and you'd see they had 6 different computers by this company, and they all seemed to be reasonably priced and everyone was buying them. And if that was all you knew about it, you would think, this is a great company. I should buy lots of stock in this company. You know, everyone loves them. They're doing great. But they were making such a little margin amount on each of those computers that they eventually had to go bankrupt.
Wow.
Being the people, you know, being the company that's the expert at the penetration price doesn't really help you. So that's why it's worth it for Apple and the others to try and make such a big deal about their newest thing, because it's worth that advertising money. That's where they get their buoyancy. Okay, now we have, oops, wrong button. Restaurant meal one. So we had the complication with restaurant meals, remember, was at the very end you divide by so many servings, because people don't normally show up at a restaurant and order the entire lasagna casserole. So other than that, it's the same kind of thing. We had 2 different formulas, and I'm going to shrink this just a tiny bit so it fits on one line. There was the desired profit one, which looked the most like what we were doing. You're going to add up everything, increase it by the 1+ trick, and then divide by how many. Or you had the food cost percentage method, which looked much more like yield percent or amortization table, where you're dividing by a scale factor because you're using it backwards. So for number 3, we're going to add up the dollar amounts. Multiply it by 1 plus the scale factor. And up here, we have 13%. I guess I might as well make that green too. And then we also have to say, as our last step, it serves 4 people. So this would be how much they should sell the entire casserole for, but really we only have to sell it 1 plate at a time. So we put a divided by 4 at the end. So what is that? Let's see, 25 plus 33 plus 28 and 1.13 and divided by 4. So it's about $24.30. Everyone get the same? For number 4, we're going to ignore the labor cost and the other cost. We're only caring about the food cost. It's still true that we have 4 people we care about. And this is a bigger scale factor. If you're using this system of pricing, then you tend to pick a bigger number as your scale factor. These answers are not going to match because they're 2 different restaurants using a different methodology, even for a similar situation. So it's okay that our answers are not going to match. So the food cost is 25. We'll divide it by the 0.28 because 28% is 0.28. I guess I should make that blue to be consistent. And then again, we're dividing by 4 because there are 4 people buying this. And it's not about, it really is. No, it is about 22.32. Everyone get that on your calculators also.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry I started badly today, but now you've seen that these problems aren't so bad. We're just multiplying by the percent by the original amount. These problems weren't so bad as long as you either ignored the red herring or followed the directions carefully. And these problems weren't so bad. You just plug things into the formula. Unfortunately, it gets a little worse because now we're going to talk about discounting things, which we haven't gotten to yet. So discounting isn't always a terrible topic, but when we get to chain discounts, it's everyone's least favorite part of Math 25. So when an item's selling price is discounted, then this looks exactly like the margin pricing. We go down by a certain percentage. We can use the 1 minus trick, or we could just subtract. Similar to here, if we wanted on this problem, we could have just multiplied the 727 by 0.82, and we would get there in 1 step. Does that make sense, or should I write it out?
Okay, I get that.
You get that? Okay, we've used the 1 minus trick a little bit. People don't normally find the 1 minus trick as kind of natural in their brain. A lot of people like the 2 steps where we subtract rather than having to think about the 0.82.
Right.
And we can continue doing that as we're thinking about discounts. So here's a nice easy one. I will be a responsible teacher and put new topic discount at the top. But this looks exactly the same as before. It starts at 80, it goes down to something else. It's 15% off. So we take our 0.15, multiply it by 80,
You get 12.
and get 12. Then
68.
16. Or if you wanted the 1 minus trick,
Yeah, I'm not very partial to that one.
I'm going to make you look at it anyway.
Oh,
'Cause
thanks.
I know what's coming up and you don't. That would get you 68 in one step, even though it's a more complicated step.
Well, it's not really that complicated. You're still only plugging in, I mean, the two numbers that are originally in the problem, and then the
Yeah.
1 minus. That's not a big deal, really.
It's not. It is not harder to do. It just, for many people, is less intuitive to do.
Yeah, because they're not used to doing it.
Okay, so that was an easy one. What happens about a chain discount? So let's look at that one.
Hmm.
So now instead of one arrow, which we've been doing all day, now we have 2 arrows.
Oh dear.
So we start at 100, because for a slightly confusing topic, let's use an easy number. It goes on sale for 15% off. And then whatever that is, we're going to go on sale by 20% off.
Okay, so the first one is 85.
Okay, wait, I'm not done yet. And then whatever that is, we're going to go another 15% off. I should have drawn these smaller. Okay. Yeah, so for here, 100. Is it better if I put the 0.15 or the 100 first? Anyone care?
Doesn't matter to me.
I like the decimal first because I'm thinking 15% of 100. So that gets us 85. So that's 17.
68. $57.80. Oh, well, yeah, you got that first.
780.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so there we go. And you've seen this happen where you have, you know, a coupon for something at Euphoria Chocolates and it's also Valentine's Day and you do the buy 4, get 1 free thing or whatever, right? So discounts can chain like this. Not too bad. It's just basically 3 of the same problem.
Where'd you get the last 15 from? In the problem, it says 10.
Oh, because I'm writing it wrong. Okay, one moment. I'm not sure why I'm not copying things right. So that's just going to be
It's the clouds.
680.
61.20.
Thank you for catching my error.
Absolutely.
Okay, so far so bad. No, so far so good. It gets bad though when you have to find the missing part.
Oh dear.
So this is one of those things that can always be a problem you skip on
Hey.
the. So for a lot of people, everything we've done today isn't bad. It's just multiplying things by percents and adding or subtracting. But this one is where they say, nah, I'm not going to either like this or it's just not worth it for the time if it was a timed test. Things are different this term. You have no time limit on your tests. So the fact that this is a little bit of a longer problem doesn't necessarily mean that it's more likely you will skip it. So let's see how this works. So same kind of thing. The store originally is selling this for 100. And we still have that same 15% off. And then we're going down 20%, which I think was the same as last time.
Yes.
Now, we know the goal is $61.20 because there's some competitors thing out there. So we're wondering what percent goes in that last spot. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first part is exactly the same. In fact, I can even just copy all that, right? That's still going to be 85 for exactly the same reason. And the other one is still going to be 68 for exactly the same reason. So what happens here?
You got a cold?
Allergy season.
Oh,
I was outside a lot before, which was nice, but now it makes me sneezy. Okay, are we going forwards or backwards with
Now
this
do
one?
we, I'm wanting to go 60, I'm wanting to write it like a problem. 68 is what a, I mean, 6120 is what percent of 6?
Yeah, remember we did a kind of Mad Libs thing with blank is blank percent of blank. Does that ring a bell?
mm-hmm.
This number.
Yeah, that's what my brain's wanting.
Yeah, so this was the part, and this was the whole, or this was the new, and this was the original, or there's a third pair that's blanking on me. This is always the percent, right? So we want to say that 6120 is what percent of 68? So 61.2 is becomes equals, of becomes multiply, divide both sides by the same thing to get y by itself. I have to not have that pop up there. Okay. And 61.2, I go back
9%.
90%.
Or yeah, well, 90. Sorry.
So this part gives me that y equals 90%. And that's true, but I'm not going to really put a box around it yet. So this amount here is 90% of that amount, but that's not what they asked.
Mhm.
So I have one last little step. If what remains is 90%, then how much did we get rid of?
Oh,
10%. So yeah. That's the one I can finally put a box around. I ran out of room way too much here. There was a y equals 0.9 and changing the 0.9 to 90%. That's all kind of fallen off the bottom of the slide. So I think we should do another one of these and have me write it more carefully. So this wasn't hard. It was the same blank is blank percent of blank that we were using before with other problems. But that was sort of an extra step compared to how this was before. And then we had to flip things at the end and say, if we keep 90%, then we got rid of 10%. So it was just a little longer. But you could see on a timed test why you might want to save this for last. Okay, let's do both kinds. So here was the straightforward one. And there's the missing link in the chain discount. An item that normally sells for $28 is on sale for 33% off. And then whatever you get, it's going to go down by another 20%. So try that, and then I will do it in a moment.
$9.24. Making the price $18.76. $3.75.
So we would get 15 and a penny. Good luck after actually pricing at $15.01, but that's what the math says.
Right.
Everyone okay with number 5? Nice and straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, not really harder, but just longer. Now we have a longer chain with a missing percent. So, I'm also starting with, I'm not sure what's up here. It doesn't tell me the,
Right. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, oh, where's the price?
so the solution to that is just that you get to make it up.
Oh.
Because if all you're caring about is percentages, it's all going to work out anyway. So, of course, the easiest number for me for percents is 100. So I am just going to pretend it's 100. There was a similar one we did when we were talking about saving for retirement, where Scrooge McDuck put an unknown amount of money in an account,
Right.
and it went up by 15. And then how much does it have to go down by to get back to the same initial amount? And it would be less than 15% because we were starting with a bigger number. So you need a smaller percent of the bigger number to make the same change. Remember that one? And it was the same thing. If we're just looking for an overall percent kind of thing, and it doesn't tell us what number to use, then we'll just make one up. So the first is 14%. The second is 9%. Everyone with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're not sure what the percent is there. It also is trying to be sneaky. It doesn't tell us this number like we did in the other example of this kind. So how do I find that amount?
And where does the 28% come into play? Or is that?
Oh, that's a good hint. Overall, it's 28%. The single equivalent discount rate means overall,
Oh.
it's going to be 28% off.
3% then.
So what's 28% of 100?
Oh, well, I was just looking at the first two numbers. If it's overall 28%, I was just adding those two together and seeing what the difference was.
Now, you can't just add up percents like that, because remember, the same percent of a bigger number
Isn't going to be the same, right?
so they're not based off the same original. But moving from here to the bottom, what's 28%? 28% of 100. Don't think too hard.
28.
Yeah, it's just $28. That's why we picked the 100. So overall, this number here is just going to be
72.
72. Does that make sense in yellow?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that phrase in lecture last time, the single equivalent discount rate, but I don't think we actually had it in a problem. But that's what it means. It's just overall, we're going to bypass all the other steps. It's like chutes and ladders kind of. Okay, now I can do my last step. So I will think to myself, blank is blank percent of blank, And we want that 72 is what percent of 7826? And I've learned from my mistakes and made sure to leave lots of room to write on all the steps that I didn't have room for before. Okay, so 72 is 92% of the price immediately before. So what percent was actually removed? I take the whole thing, take away the 92% that's still there, and 8%. Is my answer. So no one step was bad, but let's count how many steps we had. First, we had to remember to make up a price. Then we had 2 steps to multiply and subtract. Then we had 2 more steps to multiply and subtract, so that was up to 5. Then we had another multiply and subtract, so now we're up to 7. Then we had to kind of fill in the Mad Libs blanks, so that's like 8. And then solving this is 2 more steps, so that's 10. Maybe you count ripple up, so we're at 11. And then you subtract and we're at 12. So it's a 12-step problem. Even if they're tiny, it just feels a little bit more like a chore compared to this kind of thing.
Wow.
You can handle it.
Yeah.
Open book, no time limit. Nothing's really hard. It's just a lot of it.
I like math. It's fun.
This is also sort of like that Archer Queen problem, where you could find out that something was twice as much or twice as strong, even if you didn't know anything really about the situation. You just knew that it had doubled by 10% 7 times. So it's kind of remarkable. We don't know what this item is. We don't know what it's priced for at any stage. All we know is that if we make the third discount 8%, then overall we will have discounted it by 28%. And we can find that out not knowing anything about the situation other than the first 2 discounts. Okay, and that's as hard as they get. So it's not actually that bad. Our next topic is charge options. And if you want me to do more of these random problems, I can. Or if you want me to do, let's look and see what the turn-in homework is like. Just because of the time, with only 12 minutes, I'm a little hesitant to move on. By the way, I hope it's not too annoying that on these pages you have to skip over the Math 20 topics. My goal is that it feels sort of empowering, whether or not you took Math 20 at LCC or not. The fact that you've made it all the way to the bottom of this list means you've come pretty far. So yay. Okay, should we do any of these problems? I'll change the numbers because they're turn-in homework, but anything look confusing?
Yeah, we could do this.
Which one?
Do number one.
Number one. Okay.
Yeah. See if I did it right.
I'll grab both. I bet we can fit them all on one slide. What does my picture look like for number one, my little diagram?
I have percent times selling price.
Mm-hmm.
Margin rate, excuse me, times selling
240
price.
is the selling price up high. The wholesale cost is what I'm looking for, except I'm not actually looking for that. I just don't know it. It has a 40% margin rate. I should think to myself, hey, the margin rate goes down. Everything is nice in this picture. And then like Donna said, we're just multiplying. Oh, and I forgot to change the number, so I'm giving away this problem. Before, we had subtracted because the problem had asked us, what is the wholesale cost? But here we're done. No one's asking us to actually do the subtraction. It just says, what's the margin amount? Does someone want to do number two and then hold the picture up to the webcam? Do one on the board.
I don't know if you can see it.
Let me see if I can highlight spotlight video for Donna. I see the 96, 40.
Can you share your screen?
I share my screen? Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if it's my computer or.
I was trying to let Donna steal the show.
Oh, like.
So she held up number one. I couldn't find number two on her paper the way it was dancing around. Should we try again, Donna?
Yeah, let me try it again.
Okay, I'm going to steal the screen again. Oops, no, there I go. Now we try it again because I didn't stop sharing the screen when I meant to. I was wondering why it was funny. Okay, yep. Thank you.
So it's 96 for the answer of number one.
think so.
Yeah.
So 96 was the amount of money happening on that arrow, so to speak, right? Again, we could add if we wanted and say that the selling price will be 126, but no one asked us to do that, so we're just done. Should I go back to the homework list?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember which one I needed help on, but let's do number 8.
Number 8. Oh, okay. Okay. So again, we're imagining sort of 2 different restaurants, 2 different business models, but the similar situation. The same food, labor, and other cost, and the same serving size. So that serving size was 6. The desired profit method, 10%. And the food cost percentage method had 30%. So this one's going to use a 0.3, and this one's going to use a 0.1. Everyone okay with what I've highlighted so far?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just plug things in.
Mm, 145.
Again, I'm forgetting to change the numbers, so. Okay, what do I do for the bottom one? You narrate, since I'm doing your homework for you.
Put the 2658. Divided by the scale factor.
I am going to divide by the 0.3. How much does the food cost for this one? It's not related to that. That's a different restaurant. or at least a different business model being tested by the same restaurant.
Oh,
Well, the food is 50.
The food is 50, so I do that and I ignore the other two numbers for this method. And my last little part,
Serving.
30. No, you're forgetting something.
6.
Divide by 6.
We want to divide by serving.
27.78.
Okay. And we talked last class about why restaurants have both these models. For some restaurants, then every meal is very different. You might use expensive mushrooms or fancy meat or something like that. And so breaking down the types of costs to price each item on the menu makes sense. Maybe one type of dish you prepare is much more labor intensive, so you want to highlight that and price it accordingly. In other restaurants, there might be, no, everything we do is about the same. We're running a fast food restaurant. It's not that any one item is more expensive. It's not that any one dish takes more labor. It's not that any cooking one thing takes more electricity. It's all about the same. So we'll just base it as food is 30% of what we do and go from there. Okay, so we're out of time, but the rest of the homework isn't really any worse. You have more of the pricing things, including one problem that's the chain discount, but you can handle that. And when I see you next time, we'll talk about the charge options. Charge options is when you, furniture is the classic example. You're shopping for something and the store says, yes, we'll sell this to you. Do you want the layaway plan or the installment plan or a zero down plan, or are you just going to put it on a credit card? So we'll talk about what all those mean. So you can shop intelligently or run a furniture store.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe see you tomorrow at the study session.
Thank you, David.
Otherwise,
Have a
have
great
a good
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah, what time is the study session?
The study session is 3:30.
3:30. I need to start.
So tomorrow, 3:30.
Tomorrow's the 22nd, right?
Yes, tomorrow is
you.
the 22nd.
Thank you.
Okay.